Hey everybody, it's Strict9 with Strict9 GP, and welcome back to another episode of my Out of the Park 20 series with the Phillies. Potentially my last episode in this series, at least for a while, because the run is over. We went through the playoffs. I was hoping if we got to this World Series, I would come back and we'd have some gameplay episodes, but we just came up short. There were some promising things that happened in the playoffs early on that I thought might give us a shot, but we wound up losing in the league championship series to San Diego, a wild card team, and they were the surprising thing that happened. They knocked off Arizona, which I thought would give us a good shot, but we were just not in that series like we should have been. Just to give you a recap of how it went. In the division series, we had a great series, honestly, against St. Louis. We were down 2-1, and St. Louis was the only team in the playoffs on the National League side that we had a losing record against in the regular season. And we played them pretty tight until we got to that Game 4, but had to go with Gramajo, kind of one of the lower tier starting pitchers in the staff, and he pitched a great Game 4, kept us in the series 2-1, and then the man Thompson came back in Game 5, and we won it 3-1. Great series, great comeback, and like I said, with Arizona out of it, I really thought we had a great shot. And in the league championship series, this is how frustrating this one was. We won the first one 2-0. Great start from Rigler. We were up 6-1 in Game 2 going into, I think, if I'm looking at, well, I don't look at the log, I'll look at the box score. We were up 6-1 going into the 8th inning. They scored 6 runs, won it, and that was pretty much it. We just rolled over and lost 3 games in a row. Some were close, but we just were never in it. So unfortunately, knocked us out of the playoffs for the last time for me, probably. And now they're going on to the World Series against, I think it's not decided yet. So what I'm going to do in this episode, we're going to go through the playoffs, look at the end of season awards, and then maybe give a little recap of our season, where we're at, and the kind of history I've had with this franchise, and then that'll probably be it for the series. At least I might keep simming. I'm not really playing as in depth as I have been with the series. Just see how some of these guys finish off. See how the Phillies look after I'm gone. Maybe so there might be an update episode later, but for now, this is gonna end the playthrough for the most part. But let's go ahead. First things first, let's just go ahead and get through the playoffs. So it's Astros, San Diego, and Astros just mow through San Diego. I don't think San Diego has been in the World Series in this playthrough. Let me just take a quick look at that. So you look at us, that's, we had 3 World Series in those last 6 seasons. Yep, San Diego was in it against Houston in 2027, lost. That's the only time I'm seeing them making it. Yep, that was it for them in 2025 they made it and won against the Yankees. So it's been a while since they've been in the playoffs, but they've had some success throughout this run, this series. But now Houston, with that one, that gave them 5, if you count 2018, 5 World Series titles since I started this playthrough, which I started it in version 16, I think, of Out of the Park Baseball. So they were definitely one of the better teams overall in the series. But now let's take a look at some news, and then we'll get to the end of season awards. Ron Nichols, the guy who had some success as a catcher, he's retiring. Juan Palma. This is some of the biggest question marks the Phillies have going into the offseason. So Juan Palma has executed his option year, so he's going to be back for the next 4 seasons. Phillies have got to hope this guy is able to play to his potential from those seasons he had with Houston. Otherwise, this is a big bust. But on the flip side, Beers decided to void his contract. So he's done for the Phillies unless they re-sign him. And that's probably a good thing for him because he's a 3-star player, a good player, and had a great playoffs. Both him and Palma. One of the things that I had said was that these guys are going to have to respond in the playoffs, and they did. I mean, of the offense the Phillies had, Beers and Palma were 2 of the best players in the postseason. But he was going to make $21 million again for the next 3 years, so it's good that I think he is moving on. Now, owner goals, end of season. He's really upset that we didn't get an MVP candidate. We're doing good with the financial targets and making the playoffs. He's not too upset. He's good with what we've done. He wants me to upgrade at left field, acquire a Cy Young Award winner, which we already have in Thompson, improve home runs, which, I agree, that should be something we should be able to do and reach the World Series. So not too bad. In terms of the budget, though, maybe he gave us a little bit of money. I can't remember. It seems to be about the same. But we'll have some money to play around with now that Beers is going. Some other guys are going as well. Let's see. Some players retiring, staff members retiring, probably guys that I just did not want to re-sign. So there's going to be quite a bit of personnel that they're going to have to fill on this team. We got a trade proposal, a third baseman here, 2.5-star third baseman for Gramajo. I'd have to think about that. You know, he's 27. He's got some good things about him, but not great. I don't know. I think Gramajo is a little bit more important to us right now, so I'll reject that. Now, the arbitration period is going to be coming up, and I'll take a look at it real quick, even though I'm pretty sure what I'm going to see here. Like Hadakiyama, Zach Thompson, those guys are going to stay. Clark, DePaz. Dean, I think he should stay based on the season he had. He was really good. Sub-2 ERA, a lot of strikeouts per innings pitched, 2.8 wins above replacement for a reliever's good. Pritchard is a guy I think we need to just let go. So he's a guy I would try to trade, and if not, just honestly let him go. And Eric George, at that money, I would keep him, but I still don't think he's going to be a starter here. And then in terms of qualifying offers, the only one that I would really be interested in giving a qualifying offer would be Gutierrez. Simply because I think he's got one more good year left in him. He is an Ironman rated in terms of injury proneness. He gives you what he gives you, which is good speed, although his speed's gone down from, say, 4 years ago. He's good defensively. I would probably give him a qualifying offer, honestly. But the rest I would let go. Warlick, I might think about it just because he is compensation eligible, but that would probably be the only reason. But let's go ahead and look at the end of season awards, see if we got any Phillies showing up. I know right away we're probably not going to have any. Hadakiyama's got an outside shot, I think, at the reliever of the year, but that's about it, I think. So first things first, Gold Glove winners. I'm looking here in the American League just for any former Phillies, but I don't see any. In the National League, Zach Thompson, once again, 5-time Gold Glove Award winner at pitcher. That's quite an accomplishment. in and of itself, really. I don't see that a whole lot. Uh, but he was the only Philly who made it. Andy Parker, a good player from St. Louis, we saw in the playoffs. He's young, 25. This guy's going to be a really good player. I think the best years are yet to come from him. We got a trade proposal, another third baseman. Not bad. Not really. Depends on what they want from him. And it looks like they want Gramajo as well. So Gramajo's going to have some oh, man, this is a good-looking right fielder. At least for my scout. My scout has him at 3.5. Great defense, great speed. He is a lefty, though, but he doesn't hit too poorly, at least from my scout, against lefties. Whew. Boy, that's something to think about. I don't know if Rebollo's ready. This guy has good defense, good average. I think I could afford to let Gramajo go based on the kind of, just the pitcher that he is. I mean, we should have Andy Buck coming back. We've got Viramontes, who could be ready to go next year. And now that well, that's a good one. That's something to think about because I don't have that kind of a outfield prospect until you go pretty deep into my minors. And honestly, these aren't, the one guy here's 2.5 stars potential, and that's about it. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time here, I guess, but I mean, that's not a bad trade for Gramajo. And Gramajo's still not eligible for arbitration. See what my scout thinks about him. Yeah, I think I'm going to sit on that one for a little bit. All right, so relievers of the year, Monterez for California, second time he's won that award. He's a good-looking reliever. And then National League went to Hadakeyama once again and unanimously. So his third straight reliever of the year award. So we're getting a guy here who's just 29, about to turn 40. He was an international free agent. Who knows? He might build a Hall of Fame career there just based on his the kind of closer he's been. Josh Dean got second in voting, and I don't see any other Phillies in that list. So now let's go all the way up to Most Valuable Player Award. All right, so Platinum Stick, which is pretty much Silver Slugger. We've got Mike Sharp showing up here. He's a former MVP. He had a good year for might get the MVP again. He's in the running anyway for the Yankees. Not seeing any former Phillies. On the National League side, that we'll see anybody here because we had such a poor year for home runs. Some guys here that we've seen for a while. A new first baseman, though. Suzuki not here. Josh Green, a young guy from Cincinnati. He had a great year. Probably going to get some MVP votes. Joe High, Arizona, former MVP. He's had a good career for them. Andy Parker, a guy that I just mentioned. Joe Howard wound up leading the league in wins above replacement. He was injured. I think he missed almost a third of the season. He's a 2-time MVP. Based on those numbers, he might get it again. It's going to be interesting to see how the voting falls into place. But he might actually get it again. So for Rookies of the Year, Chris Winkler at Boston. He did have a pretty decent year, showed some power. And then in the National League, Jorge Alvarado, pretty decent looking player at Cincinnati. Looks like it was a weak year for rookies. best managers went to Rivera with the White Sox. That's kind of unexpected. They did win the Central Division, and then Arizona. Santos once again. How many times has he won this thing? 4 times, and even though they didn't make it to the World Series, he was Manager of the Year. So Cy Young Award, once again, Urowski for Boston. Led the league in wins and strikeouts and wins above replacement. He's won the award 2 times in a row now, looks like. Is that? Yep, he won it in 2043, even though had a pretty weak year in wins and ERA. But 33 years old, he's had a good career. I don't see Hall of Fame here, but a lot of strikeouts. If he stays healthy and if his ratings stay here for another 3 years or so, he's going to put some good numbers up. Probably not Hall of Fame, though, when it's all said and done. I don't see any other former Phillies in that list. And then in the National League, it went to Chris Laufer. Kind of a surprise. He led the league in only one category, WHIP. And his wins above replacement at 6.3 was pretty good. A lot of strikeouts. First time he's won the award. He does give up quite a bit of home runs for his type of pitcher that he is, but a lot of strikeouts. I expected it would go to not necessarily Burnham. I really expected it to go to Reza, who won the award last year, led the league in wins above replacement again, also ERA and strikeouts, but just didn't get a lot of wins, just 10 wins, so that probably hurt him. Zach Thompson wound up getting, 6th place. Another solid year from him, but he definitely did take a step back this year. Lowest win total since his second season in the league. Lowest ERA since his second season in the league, but second in career strikeouts for him. 3rd year in a row where he's hit at 6 wins above replacement or above. So this guy, we'll get him in arbitration for 1 more year, and then it's going to be a scramble, I think, if the Phillies can put together an extension for him. I hope so, because I'd like to see what his career turns out to be with the Phillies. He's probably going to be on the all-time leaderboards in a lot of categories if he stays. That's one of the things I know. Ultimately, the goal is to build a winning team, win the World Series, hopefully win the World Series multiple times. But another good goal that I shoot for is just how many players I can develop that either, first off, make it to the all-time team leaderboards, those top 10 leaderboards. And we'll take a look at those when I go to the recap here. And then above that, how many Hall of Fame players can I develop? I think I get probably more satisfaction from that than honestly winning. But the game's so deep, you can enjoy so many different aspects of it. But that's definitely a favorite of mine. So now we got MVPs coming up, and it did go to Mike Sharp. I thought he had a really good chance at it this year. This is his first time winning the award. He's former Rookie of the Year, multiple award winners, just 30 years old, signed for multi-years up through 2050 if he doesn't opt out. He's putting together an early case for the Hall of Fame. He's had a good career. DJ Trejo, another guy who I think is going to be just an incredible player in this league, mainly because he draws a lot of walks, coupled with all the other things he does. He gives you kind of like numbers that Suzuki in the National League would give you, except he's even better there. He's got more speed, so he's going to even give you stolen bases. So this guy really is going to put together a good career if he stays healthy. Ben Dooley, another young player for Cleveland, 5 stars, 26 years old, had a really stable, solid career so far. If there's anybody else I'm missing here, Josh Atkins, another former MVP, had a good year. Kostinko, seeing some old players here. Jeremy Dahl got some votes. I don't see any former Phillies there, but I am seeing some guys who have pretty much turned into year-over-year superstars in this league. Right now, the league in this playthrough seems pretty stable. Not a lot of turnover in terms of who their best players are year to year. And then in the National League, it went to Joe Howard. So that wins above replacement did factor in, I guess, more than anything else. And he wins his second MVP award. This guy's had a good start to his career as well, but injuries might keep him from being the kind of player that he could be, putting up the kind of numbers that he could. So we got Andy Parker, Josh Green finishing second, third. Those guys are really young. Cincinnati's putting together a good team here with some young, good young talent. I don't see St. Louis as well. They've got some good young players getting some votes. Suzuki did get some votes, but this is the lowest I've seen from him since he's been in the league, and it might be that he is starting to show his age, and he might be on the way out of his career. He's going to be a free agent next year, but this year just 246 average. Production was still there, 144 walks though. That's where he gets you. I mean, he has great eye and discipline, and his wins above replacement's always high. He's had a good run, not Hall of Fame caliber. Had he played 5 more seasons and given us the kind of numbers that he put up so far, he might have had a chance at the Hall of Fame. I don't know if there's going to be any Phillies showing up here. It doesn't look like there is. So that's the kind of year that we had. It was definitely an off year from previous years, even though we won that National League East Division again. I expect next year might be better for some players on the team. And of course, some of the young guys like Radeball, with another full year under their belts, they might even become all-star type players. But that's it for the season. One of the things that I will look at, and what I was just talking about, I love going through this history index for the Phillies and looking at the top 10 and seeing how many players that I developed who, whether it's through draft or maybe picked them up on waiver wire or early in their career, and they wound up having a great career for the Phillies and making it to the leaderboards here. So we'll take a look at that. First off, on the batting side, so on-base percentage, Ian Norman, 9th all-time in Philly history, and he's still playing pretty well for Houston. Part of that World Series team. That was his first World Series, so he's probably glad that he got away from Philadelphia for that reason. And they've signed him long-term, too. They gave him an extension through 2047. I know there was one of my commenters, or one of my viewers had a great comment about Ian Norman in terms of the value he brings relative to the league. And it's just, I look at his numbers every time I pull him up, and I'm not seeing $20 million here. I know that catchers are scarce right now, but I guess that's something that you really have to weigh in the game and in real life too. It's how much do you value certain position players, because that's what it comes down to in the end. If he's the best catcher out there, then maybe he deserves $20 million a year, but it's not saying a whole lot about the kind of catchers that are out there in this league. But he was a draft pick for mine. Did make it to that top 10 list. Slugging percentage career, Juan Elman on here. He was a guy who I took a gamble on early in his career, and he had some good years for the Phillies, especially this one in 2031. 46 home runs, 4.9 wins above replacement, and he did make he beat out guys like Ryan Howard, Bobby Abreu, so that's pretty good. Gene Warlick on this list, and he's going to remain on that list because I'm not going to re-sign him, and I doubt the Phillies will try to re-sign him when I let him go. But he finishes 8th in slugging percentage for his career. OPS, don't see anybody showing up there. Wins above replacement. not seeing anybody showing up here either. So Phillies, of course, is a team that with a long history. I mean, you have to go back, I guess, late 1800s. They're one of the original franchises in baseball, and they put together, a lot of history. So, for instance, Billy Hamilton, this guy played in the 1890s with the Phillies. So it's pretty tough to make it to this leaderboard, especially on some of these ratings here when you're looking at players where the offensive numbers were skewed a little bit back in the early days of baseball, and even the pitching numbers, because you'd have guys who might start 40, 50 games a year, put up a lot of innings and get a lot of wins. So WAR, wins above replacement, nobody showing up there. In terms of games, an older player here, if you've been watching this series for a while, Jorge Vargas, he was a guy who I had a love-hate relationship with for a long time, but I always liked, when he was good, I thought he was one of the better leadoff type players in the game. He gave you power, good speed. He led the league in stolen bases 3 years in his career. Was a good player overall, and then towards the end started getting injured, and that hurt him. But he finished up with, I think, a good career, considering the kind of player he was. Over 400 stolen bases, over 1,000 runs, 31.2 wins above replacement. He was a draft pick for me, so I like that as well. Guy that I drafted had that kind of a career, because it is tough to do. It really is. And then at-bats for career, Vargas' 7th career for this list. Runs, Vargas 5th, so that's pretty high up there on that list. He's the only Philly from my playthrough who made it to that list. And then on hits, he's 8th career all-time. Again, when you consider the history of the Phillies, that's pretty good. 1,675 hits, finished 8th. And then total bases, he was 9th. So even showed up on that leaderboard. Singles, 9th. Doubles, he was 5th. Again, it's hard to believe, but he may have been the best player that I developed. I guess he was the best Philly player I developed. Let me put it that way. I mean, we probably had some guys who we didn't sign or we traded early in their career who wound up with better careers than Vargas, but Vargas looks like to be the best offensive player I developed and kept with the Phillies. Triples, nobody on that list. Home runs, Juan Ochoa finished 3rd. He was a guy who I traded early in his career with Chicago. For a time there, he was one of the best players on my team when we were struggling and not making the playoffs. He was Rookie of the Year the first season that I had him. I was having a great career, and then injuries started catching up with him, and he lost his ratings and just couldn't hang in there. I was hoping that he would get to 300 home runs for us, but finished a little bit short of that. He is 3rd all-time, though, on the Phillies list. That's the only one from a playthrough who made it there. RBIs, nobody made it from my playthrough. Stolen bases, Vargas 3rd. Royce Lewis 6th. Of course, you probably are familiar with Royce Lewis. I traded early for him when he was with Minnesota, and he was a great player, but again, injuries got the best of him, and didn't wind up having the kind of career that he could have had. But those two, Vargas, Lewis on the stolen bases, walks, Vargas on that list as well. Hit by pitch, Sean Barge on that list. Sean Barge may have retired. He did after that the 2042 season. He retired. He was a good player for early in his career. Anthony Rizzo, who I did pick up for a while there in the playthrough, he's on that list. Strikeouts, Juan Ochoa and Royce Lewis on that list, and Vargas. But that's not one of the big ones. Now, looking at pitchers, this is probably going to be even harder, but I think looking at Thompson, he's going to wind up on some of these career leaderboards, I think and hope. And then even Barbarossa, I think, has a chance if he's not on there already. So we look at ERA career right away. Pete Parker 8th for his career at 275. That's the kind of player that he was for us. I mean, just 4 seasons, but he definitely left an impact. Wins for career, nobody's on that list yet, but Barbarossa and Zach Thompson are right 1 season away, I think, from making this list. And then losses, Kevin Gowdy, a guy who I drafted as well. I think he was a second-round draft pick. He had a long Philly career, even though he wasn't that great. He was good enough early in his career that I signed him to a long-term extension, and he just stayed with us. He was, for a time when we were struggling and not making the playoffs, the best pitcher that I had, one of the best, and wound up almost making the career wins list, 3 short of that, but a decent pitcher. I think he's going to show up a couple times on the leaderboards here. Winning percentage, Zach Thompson, second right now. Chad Rozier, who is no longer with us. He's retired. He had an interesting career. He was used quite a bit, and he was there when we were struggling as well to make the playoffs. Pete Parker on this list. Robert Person, nope. So that's all from my playthrough. Saves, though, Juan Mendoza. If you've watched this playthrough for a while, when we were making this last playoff run, he was the closer who started it out for us. And then 2040, he won the reliever of the year. The next year, his ratings tanked. I've never seen as dramatic a drop-off in ratings as I saw with this guy. He went from being top closer in the league to being released. He was a liability. I couldn't even use him. And I've seen that happen in real life, honestly, with players where they get injured or something like that. But closer in real life, that can happen quite a bit. And part of me is like, well, that's kind of an interesting twist that's kind of just randomly thrown into the game. But he had great season and then just fell off the map. And actually, Hadakayama took over the closer duties from him in that 2041 season and never looked back. But he has managed to be the all-time leader in saves. I think Hadakayama is going to pass him with another year or two. Bobby Austin's a guy who was early on, somebody I drafted and had a few good years. You know, saves are easy to make in this list because you get a closer with a 3-4 year run, he's going to make it to this top 10 list. I think the big question now is Hadakayama, how many is he going to finish up with? Wins above replacement. Again, nobody from my playthrough on this list, but I think 27.5 will make it. So Thompson right now is at 26.2. So he should make it, just having a decent year next year. And then games pitch career, Chris Ollis, former guy that I think I drafted him. I did. And he was a reliever of the year, at one point. This guy was a dominating pitcher and didn't really have the stamina, but had the pitches and was always wanting to be moved from closer into or reliever into the starting rotation. So I did, and he immediately became valuable as a free agent. And I don't know if I traded him away to the Yankees or if I just let him go. Yeah, I just let him go. And he signed a big contract at the time with the Yankees and was a starter there. Couldn't rack up too many wins except for that first year when he had 15 because was only good for maybe 5 innings at a time, but led the league in strikeouts in 2031, finished over 200 a few times. He was a beast of a pitcher when he was on. That year that he won the reliever of the year, 2025, he had 102 strikeouts in 59 innings. It's one of the highest Ks per 9 innings I've ever seen. So, great pitcher at one time. You know, it's really good. I know I like doing this. I like looking at going through the history and remembering some of these guys that I had on the team. So Juan Mendoza, games pitched is going to be easy to make on this list too because there's going to be a lot of relievers. You get them for 4 or 5 years. It's going to be easy to make this list. Ramos, though, he was a Philly already when I started this playthrough. He is the career leader in games played. I don't know if there's any current players here. I don't think so that are going to catch him. Game started, Kevin Gowdy on that list, but Doug Barbarossa also on that list at ninth. And I did re-sign this guy last year to an extension. So 2 more years with a player opt-out, so potentially 3. And I'll admit it, the only reason I really signed the guy is I wanted to see how far up the leaderboards he was going to get. He has been very consistent. If he has a decent year, if he has the kind of year that he's always had, which is double digits in wins, then he's going to wind up in the top 10 all time for wins in this Phillies franchise. He's got a career ERA of 3.40. That's pretty good. Really just one bad season, and that was his first one with us. So I like the career that he's had, and I think it's kind of unexpected that this is the kind of guy who's going to wind up being one of the all-time Philly greats, but I think he's going to be there. And there's Kevin Gowdy again. Like I was saying earlier, not a great pitcher, but he got a lot of starts for us because we were having some tough times during that period when he was on the team. And then complete games, not going to see anybody there. Same with shutouts. Going down to hits allowed, might be some guys. No, don't see anybody, but home runs allowed. I know there's probably a few guys like Gowdy, 3rd career, Barbarossa, 5th, so he may have a chance to pass a few people here. Walks allowed. I don't see any current Phillies on there, but Mike Lockfeld, another guy I had a love-hate relationship with. He was one of the few 20-game winners on the team back in 2029, and that was, again, when we were really struggling as a team, couldn't make the playoffs. And he put together, a few good years, and then he became valuable on the free agent market. And didn't do anything after the Phillies, but he was a strange pitcher, really. Not much control, good stuff. But he was a lefty, I think, and that helped him out. So walks per 9 innings. Not seeing anybody here from the current playthrough either. I expected to see a few people there. Strikeouts, we are going to have some players showing up here. Kevin Gowdy, 7th all time. Barbarossa on this list at 10th, so he's going to climb up. If he plays with us a few more years, he might wind up passing Pete Alexander for 6th. But Thompson stands right now. I'm going to go back up here to get to, so for his career, he has 1,113 strikeouts. So he is just 5 behind Barbarossa. So he's going to pass him, I think, next year. If he plays out his career, it's possible he could get 3,000 plus strikeouts. I mean, he's certainly pitching like that right now. And I don't know how healthy he'll be, but if this guy gets 10 more years, I mean, 10 more seasons, he could easily get 3,000 strikeouts, I think. The big question is, will he get to 200 plus wins, something like that? And it's just, he's durable right now, but is he going to stay that way? That's the big question mark that I have, and I can't wait, honestly, to see how he does. Strikeouts per 9 innings, he's already 3rd career. Rocker and Kuznetsov, those are a couple guys who were early on prospects, I think, or maybe trades. Let me see. Kuznetsov signed as an international free agent. He was a dominating type pitcher, too, when he first came into the league. Same with Rocker, who I got from the Minnesota Twins, looks like. But he had some good upside, but didn't turn out that way. Sixto Sanchez, he was in the Phillies organization when I started this playthrough. He was one of their best rated prospects. And he, for the most part, had a good career, but injuries, hurt him. He went to Minnesota, then Detroit, had some good seasons here and there, but injuries did him in. All right, so K's to walks. A few guys here like Mendoza, showing up. Whip career. Pete Parker's second. This guy was good in that number. And then average against Parker, Thompson, Ken Dion even, who I traded away last year. At one time, I really liked this guy. He was, I was hoping to see what kind of career he had for us, but he started getting injured, and it was time to say goodbye, I guess. But that's pretty much the playthrough in a nutshell. I think for the most part, I feel like it turned out better than it could have been. I mean, there was a time through this period right here when I'd been with the team for close to 20 years and had only been in the playoffs maybe 4 or 5 times, when I was starting to think, man, this has not been successful. Been one of the least successful playthroughs I've ever had playing this game. But I think we really turned it around. Starting in 2039, I was manager of the year twice. I just wish we could have won the World Series. If there's any takeaway for me from this playthrough, it's that I could not figure out the playoffs. And I haven't had that much of a struggle with it. This, not like this anyway, since I've been playing this game. Going back, I don't know how many versions. The second version I think that they ever made is the first version that I played. I've never had this much of a struggle in the playoffs. I mean, if I get a run going where I get, 2 or 3 years in a row into the playoffs, usually one of those years I'm going to win a World Series. This year, or this playthrough, for whatever reason, could not do it. And I tried multiple playthrough types, simming it out, simming until runners were in scoring position, simming half inning at a time, playing it all the way through. The only thing I did not try was simming individual pitch. And I think, at least I like to hope anyway, that would probably have been an easier way for me to win, but it just takes too long. And so I didn't really want to go that route either. But that's how it's going to end up for now. And maybe in the future I'll give an update if I keep playing it out, if you guys show some interest. And for now, I think I'm just going to take a little break from Out of the Park. If you guys have some ideas about playthroughs you want to throw in the comments, I'll listen to what you have to say. I'm looking at some other games I might play on the channel, if not full out playthroughs like this, full long series. At least maybe taking a look at them, because there are other staying within kind of like the sports management type games. There are a couple that I'm playing right now, and I'm even kind of flirting with the idea of picking up Football Manager again this season and maybe having a go at that. I don't know. The thing that throws me off on that is there's so many good playthroughs and good YouTubers out there making Football Manager content. I don't think I could compete with them, and I just don't know if it would be worth it, to have to devote that much time to it on my channel. But anyway, I really appreciate all the support and comments and likes that I've gotten throughout this playthrough, and I hope you guys stick with me and see what else is coming up in the future. And there'll be more Out of the Park baseball for sure at some point. Just might not be right away. But thanks for watching, and I will see you next episode.